that the Arabs would like freedom from us. And this we do not intend to give them. Was Iraq about oil? Well, if the Iraqi national product had been asparagus or carrots, the 82nd Airborne would not be in Mosul or Baghdad. Of course it would. But there's another point. You know, I calculated for our Sunday magazine a couple of years ago that we now have, when I say we, I'm talking about the West, we now have, per head of population, 22 times as many military personnel in the Muslim world than did the Crusaders in the 12th century. It was a baker, of all people in Baghdad, who asked me a question. Mr. Robert, polite way of talking to someone, Mr. Robert, I have a question. You know, Fisk brings out his notebook. Yes? He said, why are you, and by you he means you, the Western military, why are you in Kazakhstan and Tajikistan? He's right, there's a French squadron in Dushanbe, which acts as close air support for the British in Helmand province in Afghanistan. Why, he said, you go into Pakistan? Why are you in Afghanistan? Why are you in Iraq? Why are military forces in Turkey and in Jordan and in Egypt and in Algeria? US Special Forces are in a base outside Taman Rasset in the southern Sahara. Why are you in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia? Why are you in Qatar? Why are you big American air base? Why are you in Oman? Why are you in Yemen? And I couldn't give him an answer because I hadn't really thought of it like that. It's an iron curtain we've built with our fortresses. And in fact, it starts way up in Greenland, US forces, and Iceland, and the United Kingdom, of course, and Germany, where the British maintain bases, as well as the Americans. And then in Bosnia, we now have Camp Bondsteel, and then in Greece, where it joins up with Turkey. We now have an iron curtain stretching from the ice cap almost to the equator. Stronger and bigger than the Iron Curtain of which Winston Churchill spoke originally in this country, which stretched from the Baltic to Trieste and the Adriatic. What is it for? What's on the other side of this Iron Curtain? Russia? China? India? Is that why it's there? I ask you this question because here was an ordinary, not very well-educated Iraqi on the streets of Baghdad asking a very important question that I hadn't thought of, and probably many of you haven't thought of, and none of our journalists have mentioned. Because we like to follow the narrative that's laid down by our presidents and our prime ministers and our generals, and by Tom Friedman. This is the problem. You know, part of my obsession with words, and I've said this before, and some of you will have heard me say this before, is the way in which we desemanticize conflict. How, because of our fear of offending Arab or Israeli, in many cases, of course, Israelis, we change the words we use. Take the wall, the Israeli wall, built for the most part on Arab land, illegally, against the law. And we refer to it as a security barrier, which was the East German expression for the Berlin Wall, Sicherheit. Or we refer to it as a fence. And of course, colonies of Israelis, and Israelis only on Arab land, have become settlements and now very often neighborhoods in the New York Times. You see, there's a problem. Ever since Colin Powell, when he was Secretary of State, instructed US diplomats in the Middle East to refer to the occupied territories as the disputed territories, many journalists, especially in this country, and agency reporters, AP, UPI, Reuters, have followed suit and written the same. And you see the problem. I'm against all violence for any reason ever, but if a child throws a stone, and you know that his land is occupied, there's a war going through his father's or his family's property, or that colonies are being built on Palestinian land, you can understand the context in which he does that. But if it's about a dispute, something you can solve over a cup of tea or in a law court, or a fence, something that might be at the bottom of your garden, then obviously Palestinians are generically violent to resist this. And thus, by our cowardice as journalists, we demean a whole group of people. You know, I'm kind of tired of hearing, particularly in this country, but I get it in Britain, people who say, you know, you journalists can be very biased. You should be neutral. You should give equal 50% of each report should be to two sides in a dispute. Ha ha ha. You know, that's okay if you're reporting a football match. Manchester United versus Newcastle. Or if you're reporting on a new highway that's going to be a public inquiry as to whether it's going to cut through a forest or not. But the Middle East is not a football match. It is a tragedy of great bloodshed and suffering and betrayal. And I believe that journalists should be neutral and unbiased on the side of those who suffer. For example, if you were reporting the slave trade in the 18th century, would you give equal space in your report to the slave ship captain? No, you would talk to the slaves. If you were reporting the liberation of a Nazi extermination camp, would you give equal time to the SS spokesman? No, you'll talk about the victims and the survivors. When I was in Jerusalem in August of 2001, tick, 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 the clock was ticking, wasn't it? A Palestinian suicide bomber, and their executioners are suicide bombers because they see who they're going to murder, walked into a pizzeria and blew himself up and killed 16 Israelis, more than half of them children. I was eating my lunch down the road, rushed up to the scene. I saw a woman with a chair leg through her, an Israeli woman, and an Israeli child with no eyes. Did I give equal space in my report to the spokesman of Islamic Jihad? No, I did not. And when I was in the suffrage camps on September 18th, 1982, physically climbing over the corpses, when 1,700 Palestinians had been massacred, civilians, did I give equal time to the spokesman for the Israeli army who sent the murderers, the Lebanese Christian Phalange, into the camp? No, I did not. There are ethical, moral issues in the Middle East, as there are all around the world. And we journalists should be able to have a moral feeling about what this means and what it is. Not just report as if we are machines on a mathematical formula. 50%. We've now given 600 words to the Palestinians. We need to give 601 or 599 to the Israelis, or the Syrians and the Lebanese, or the Iranians and the Iraqis, or whatever. That is not what journalism should be about. I don't believe so. You know, I'm very struck by the way in which, over and over again, American newspaper editors, this happens elsewhere, but particularly here, bemoan the falling circulation of their papers. And when I come here and I read your newspapers, I'm not surprised it's falling. And it's not just because of the pap that they publish about the major crises of bloodshed in the world. I mean, I find the New York Times on the Middle East incomprehensible. I mean, heaven knows what people who don't know the Middle East think about it. But it's not just that, it's not even well written, there's not even a literary style in it. It's like they don't care about words. I bring this up with you for a very specific reason. I'm going to quote now from a letter written home by a US Marine major from Ramadi. He's writing to his dad. This is a real letter, and I have reams of them here sent to me by one of his friends. He's trying to get the Iraqis to join in with local government, to make the Iraqis participate in the local administration of Ramadi. I don't agree with everything he says, but this man speaks with an eloquence worthy of Joseph Conrad. This is an American soldier. American Marine, sorry, they're not soldiers, they're Marines. We are trying to empower the Iraqis to walk instead of the Marines beside us, but the graft has not yet taken. There is something culturally childish in their understanding of basic Western governance and management that will require immeasurable education and probably several generations to overcome if they find it of any interest. That education is, of course, a choice that they have to make on their own. They are not our people. Our understanding of their tribal governance and its relationship to formal civic management is equally naive, and it charges our frustration. The problem now is that their every inconvenience has become our responsibility. They act as if they cannot comprehend our sacrifices and are thus ungrateful for them. The reality is that they cannot culturally comprehend our altruism or believe our stated intentions. Even though it is not their desire to offend, we are insulted and it bleeds us of affection and tolerance. Liberation will compete with invasion as our legacy, but locally we are ideologically irrelevant. Our presence is mostly only of interest to those who seek to benefit from our contracts and donations. It is a region of people making alliances, business deals, friendships and enemies one day at a time without a real concept of sustainable services, resources or trust. No future, just daily survival as they know it, family and tribe. Our contributions may be counted long after we have withdrawn, but they will not recount the names of our fallen, so many now. Each wound will be absorbed into the quiet sadness that we allow to pass beneath us as a people and a country. Our loss will have never even occurred to most people here.